Tom Petty,
Fleetwood Mac,
Neil Young, man.
Cheap Trick,
Chili Peppers,
Pat Benatar, Guns N' Roses,
Nine Inch Nails, Foreigner,
Rat,
Johnny Cash,
Metallica.
Dude, how many music albums have been made there?
Hi, I hope that you're well, or if you're new, thanks for checking out the channel. I'm Matt from Deddingtons Studios, and today we'll be checking out the latest offering from Universal Audio, a room emulation of Sound City Studios. Sonically, the attention to detail that's been invested in creating this plugin is incredible, and as you would expect, it sounds fantastic. So here are my essential tips on how I would add Sound City Studios to a track that I've just started working on. And if you stick around until the end, there are some bonus tips and also a guest appearance from Drew at Universal Audio. Okay, let's go. So if we jump into Luna, here's a new song by the Deddingtons that we've just started recording. So far we've tracked the drums, bass guitar, some electric and acoustic guitars. Let's have a quick listen to give you a feel for the track. Okay, I'll play back the track again, but this time I'll go between the room emulation being on and off. In particular, listen for the weight of the kick and snare drum change as I bring the room in and out. There are several ways that you can add the plugin to your mix. If we start with the drums, the most straightforward way would be to use an insert on the main drum bus. Just click on the plus symbol to add an insert, then if you start to type in Sound City, you can see the plugin has automatically come up for me. This is a great way to avoid having to scroll through all of the plugins in your library. Any plugins that I use regularly, I click on the star, which is the favourite icon to the right hand side of the plugin name. When I'm mixing, if I now click on the favourite icon above the plugin categories, Luna will only display my favourite plugins. By default, the Sound City plugin will open like this with a drum preset. The first important thing to notice about the default preset is that the mode being used is Re-Mic. This option is designed to effectively replace the microphones at their source. You can think of this as if you had recorded the instrument in the studio space. As such, the plugin is replacing the whole signal path and the room emulation is 100% wet. In Reamp mode, you don't have the option to blend any of the original signal back into the mix. If I open the mixer view, in the top right hand corner, the pre-delay and mix control are both disabled. You can also see that the solo light is lit, which tells you that the plugin is 100% wet. If you only have audio from close microphones, then this can be a really good option. However, I'm expecting this to be far too much room ambience for this particular situation, but let's give it a try. Okay, as we thought, that's just a little bit too much. Right, if I now select the reverb mode and I then come over here to the mixer, I'll deselect the wet solo button and I can now pull back the mix control all the way to dry. Now as I play back the track, I can blend in what will be a more appropriate level for the room emulation. There we go, that's much better. When adding an effect like this, I always like to use the in and out button at the top of the plugin just to double check myself. It can be very easy to overdo it and add a little bit too much sauce, as they say. By using the plugin as a direct insert on the drum bus like this does have two limitations. Firstly, the room can only be applied at one level across the whole kit, and secondly, it's not possible to use this room on any other instruments in the mix. However, we can get around both of these issues very easily by creating a separate bus for the Sound City plugin. First of all, I'll select the ambient drum bus. Now, using the plus sign in the top left hand corner of the tracks window, I can select from the drop down menu to create a bus. I'll name the bus Sound City Drums, and in this case I'm not going to add the ATR master tape or API summing, but I am going to add the API Vision Console extension, which I'll come back to later. Then click Create. All done. I'll now set the output to my main drum bus, and finally I need to change the colour to yellow as green is just wrong. As before, I'll add the plugin to an insert on the bus, but in this case I can just drag across the Sound City plugin from the drum bus. Now all we have to do is send each of the individual drum tracks on a send out to the Sound City drums bus. As I want to create a send from all the individual drum buses, if I select the kick drum bus first, now hold down the shift key, then select the ambient drum bus, all the drum buses are now selected together. When I click to add a send to the kick drum track, Luna will automatically create sends for me on the other drum tracks as well. A quick note here, if this doesn't work, just check that the selected group text is highlighted yellow in the groups panel, which can be found in the bottom left hand corner of the display. If this isn't selected and highlighted, then this group functionality won't work. As we will now be blending in the drum room using the effect sends, firstly we want to go back to the Sound City plugin and set the mix control back to 100% wet. This will prevent any of the original dry signal being blended back into the drum bus as well. Okay, let's play back the track and you'll hear the room start to come in as I increase the volume on the effect sends. Going back to the limitations that I mentioned earlier, I now have complete control over the amount of drum room that I would like to use on each element of the kit. For instance, I may decide to reduce the amount of room on the kick drum slightly, and then maybe increase the room on the snare. It's also worth noting at this point that as more instruments are added to the mix, the drums may well start to sound a little dry as the various instruments start to absorb the frequencies. If you have balanced the mix of the sends on the drums, just select the individual buses together again and you can now easily adjust the overall level of the room to compensate. Finally, I can now add a send to the other instruments in the track. For example, I'll now add a send to the bass guitar. I can then blend the bass guitar into the Sound City Studios space. And now, the bass player appears to be standing next to the drummer. Very cool.
Interestingly enough, what I would encourage people to do is ignore the names, right? Ignore the names. Just because it says strings doesn't mean you can't use that on drums, right? Like Sound City is so unbelievably open to your creative usage of it. So that's one thing I would say right off the bat is like, don't be afraid to experiment and do different things.
So there you go, and believe it or not, we've only just scratched the surface. A massive thank you to Drew from Universal Audio, and if you'd like to watch the full interview about all things UA, the interview will now magically appear just here. I'm Matt from Deddingtons Studios. Cheers.